We knew, Harry, that and this was the big discussion, is that after Kevin McCarthy secured the speakership, and we kind of moved on from that, and the committees start forming, which they are right now, is that the next big fight was going to be the debt ceiling, and Republicans pledge not to raise the debt ceiling if we don't cut spending. Where does that stand right now? I mean, are we on the cusp of default? Because I'm sure the American people, I mean, they're worried about anything that could, again, impact our economy even worse.
I think that's correct. So technically, the debt ceiling expires this Thursday, I believe, at midnight. However, the Treasury Department has at its disposal extraordinary measures to push off a default perhaps until this summer. But also keep in mind that represents an accelerated timetable from what we imagined many months ago. Why has the budget ceiling deadline accelerated? It has accelerated in large measure due to profligate spending by the Biden administration. So if you recall the $1.7 trillion spending contained in the so-called omnibus bill, that was a problem. If you look, for instance, at the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, you will find huge amounts of spending for health care and for climate change. Those particular expenditures, I would argue, are inflationary, even though the Democrats argue to the contrary, that they reduce the deficit. In addition to that, the Biden administration has postponed student loan repayments. All of these things are indeed inflationary, and so you can argue that the inflationary spending by left-wing Democrats is now coming home to roost, and so I think it would be a dereliction of duty by the Republicans to simply automatically raise the debt ceiling without having a serious conversation about profligate government spending.
And take a listen to this in a speech on during an MLK event, Bite 26.
We're going to talk about big spending Democrats again? Guess what? I reduced the deficit last year. But so what? These guys are the fiscally, they're fiscally demented, I think. They don't quite get it.
So again, taking those kind of pot shots at Republicans when they do control the House now, Harry, and he does have to negotiate with them, shows me he's not going to be a unifier and that this may be a real battle.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we can keep in mind and probably take to the bank in the context of this debate is that President Biden often does not know what he is saying. So, for instance, he takes credit for, quote unquote, reducing the federal debt. But in fiscal year 2022, we ended with a $1.4 trillion deficit. That consumes 5.5% of the United States gross domestic product. This has all fueled what? Higher interest rates, the highest interest rates, arguably the highest inflation in 40 years, and the highest interest rates in the last decade or so. And that accelerates the debt ceiling issue. And so President Biden has massively contributed to the problems that the American people are experiencing. The American people are spending huge extra amounts of money on eggs, on fuel, on heating oil, you name it. Inflation is on the march. That then fuels a rise in interest rates. That then accelerates the debt ceiling problems that the United States is experiencing.